Introduction. Well, we have heard a lot today already, and I think we haven't yet touched what the young generation is really wanting today. And I think we cannot make the bill without knowing what young lawyers fear and what young lawyers wish. I'd like to talk a little bit about initial training and essential skills, just like to give you a bit of a different picture of what we have heard today. Legal professions are regulated, as we know, from national level to national level. We have different regulations throughout the EU member states. However, some requirements are, for becoming a legal professional, is the completion of a legal training, is the graduation from law school. And as a result, and that's very interesting, 83% of legal professionals around the world enter the legal profession immediately after graduating. Nonetheless, several core legal professions, such as judges, public prosecutors, lawyers, or notaries, require additional training. In Austria, for instance, initial training for those core legal professions begins with the studies of the Austrian law at university level and is followed by a work-related practical training of 7 months. We call it Gerichtspraxis. You actually work as a clerk to the judge. Subsequently, the vocational practical training differs for judges, public prosecutors, lawyers, or notaries, respectively. This is the simple, however very difficult and very important technical legal training tailored to the individual legal profession. It's the so-called hard skill. But what we observe is, and what we specifically observe in our lawyers' profession, is that soft skills such as stress management, resilience, interpersonal people skills, communication, teamwork, presentation, management, leadership skills, as well as job-specific soft skills, such as negotiation and networking skills, are of great profession in the legal profession. Considering both hard and soft skills, an empirical study of over 24,000 lawyers in the United States identified the following essential foundations as necessary qualities for new lawyers. And if you read those and try to understand those, you have the impression as if we are wishing a person which is somehow super intelligent, super personal, capable. It seems like not achievable. I'm not with that, but however, I would like to identify some of those skills. Again, communication, emotional and interpersonal intelligence, legal thinking, application skills, litigation skills, but passion and ambition, professional development, professionalism, stress and crisis management, innovation, workload management, positivity, trustworthiness, intelligence, and last but not least, attention to the detail. At the very end, we must say, legal professionals must be able to adapt to the ever-changing working environment. We have felt this very strongly during the COVID-19 pandemic. There was evidence of an appetite among law firms to modernize their spaces and work differently. However, COVID-19 has, of course, acted as a catalyst to turbocharge the shifts we are already occurring. It is thus, for my opinion, really essential to successfully deal with digitalization, automation, artificial intelligence, and remote work. And as we have heard today, we have seen that this is scarcely happening, sometimes very positively happening. We've heard from our colleague from UK, it is nice to go home when you can get your work home in a very small laptop and then continue to work. But this is not the end of the story. The end of the story, we probably cannot predict today, but what we have obviously to offer in the legal profession is definitely a product, an intelligent product to help us as lawyers to produce much better results and also to make understand to the public that what we do is essential, is quick, is efficient, and is priceworthy. Let me come back to the problem that we still don't have enough figures. We cannot really relate to the individual problems in the individual countries. So we cannot really know why mobility is difficult in some countries and maybe not difficult in other countries. We just have heard in Slovenia that obviously it is much easier to switch from being a lawyer to become a judge. This is, for example, very different from Austria, where you have, of course, to take more practice in the different profession. You have as a candidate to pass supplementary examinations. You have to complete additional practical training. And this may, of course, distract young people from being mobile in legal professions, and they may look for other options. I have found an IBA report, a global report, 2022, with a lot more figures and also with an emphasis on Europe. And what is very interesting is what concerns young lawyers about the future. In percentage, most of them fear a poor work-life balance. And that is one of the greatest concerns, apart from salary. The other observation was the lack of opportunity for growth, so to actually improve in their own profession, to climb the next step on the career ladder. The other fears were the oversaturation of the labor market with new law graduates. Isn't that interesting? In 2022, when we all think we don't have enough people. The failure of the legal profession to address toxic workplaces. I will come back to that when I talk a little bit more about the gender balance. The difficulty in finding work. I think it's outraging. We're sitting here and asking for talent, and our young people think it's difficult to find work. The other fear I very well understand, that's the commoditization of legal services. Of course, if you don't know how it can work and how a very good legal app can help you and assist you, the first thing is, oh, I fear that it's taking away my job. I remember very well when in transaction business, the first tools came by whereby we could undertake a labor due diligence in a company within not more than 24 hours with all the data feeding and then getting our results. That was horrifying for many of our colleagues because that meant actually, okay, we can't employ any more colleagues in that field because the machine is doing this process. It's not true. The machine is doing the process that we can, as lawyers, work much quicker in finding the correct legal solution, in consulting our clients how and in which way we want to proceed if we have a problem in a certain field in labor law. Then, finally, threats to the independence of the legal profession and the judiciary. I found that very interesting. A young person, obviously, it's almost 43% of young lawyers who think that there are threats to the independence of the legal profession and the judiciary. These figures and these fears show very well that we obviously don't transport a correct picture of our profession, and that this is really needed, because obviously there are enough people out there who probably would be interested in stepping into our profession. Now, what are young lawyers looking for, according to this IBA research from 2022? Broadly speaking, the IBA report shows that young lawyers are most attracted by career opportunities, salary, work-life balance. And according to these factors, these are ranked as follows. 70% of the respondents cited salary as the biggest attraction of a new role. 51% cited work-life balance elements. 35% cited a greater variety of work. And 32% cited opportunities to travel or to work abroad. Other factors with similar percentages, 32%, 30%, 28%, refer to flexible working schemes, location of the workplace, high staff retention rates, regular career support, and having a high level of responsibility. We have talked today that we see that colleagues are dropping out of our profession. I have those figures only for Austria. I don't have, and only for the lawyer's profession. I don't have international figures in that respect. I only have something which I would say is a tendency internationally. The tendency is, if you ask today young professionals in the age between 25 and 35, around 50% are ready to change their jobs within the next 5 years. Around 28% are already on the way to change their job, and around 5% are just considering, is there any possibility for me to do so? So there is, of course, a large tendency that people are, or young legal professionals are changing jobs. We also talked about the dropout rate, or we assumed that there is a certain dropout rate. I would like, in that respect, to turn to diversity and gender balance. The dropout rate we can up to date very easily recognize is the dropout rate of females in the legal profession in Austria between 25 and 35. There is a high percentage of females just dropping out from the profession. They don't even change to any other profession. They are dropping out of the legal profession, and they use the legal education to enter into any profession which requires a basic legal education and which allows them probably also to find a better working environment for whatever reason. I leave that a little bit out of the door. What you see here is a table we have created within CCBE. It is much larger, of course. It combines all the EU states. But what you see is a little bit the tendency of the total number of women lawyers and members of the bars. Talking about Austria, we have a consequential change of these figures. That means there are 5 new lawyers, female lawyers, being appointed to lawyers. Let's say, in 1 month, and in the next month, they're leaving us 10 again. Then the next month, 15 are. Then the next ones later, they're leaving us 25 even. So it's a very interesting situation you cannot really understand, and that is the reason why also Mr. Kilian said we need really to take research on these figures and ask why this dropout rate is occurring. You see that there is a strong feminization of the profession forthcoming. You can already see that from the figures Mr. Kilian said about the students. It's all over Europe the same, that we have almost a majority of students in law school. However, our core professions, I think, they still lack a certain training. Why? Does a person like to stay longer with an employer? we already should know if you're accepted, if you're included, if you're embraced. I thank very, very much Anuja Ravindradir for outing her today's experience she had as a young lawyer. It should not be surprising to us that language makes a big difference in human departments and in human resources. This microaggression she was telling us, and it's a microaggression according to our scientific research, is macro when it comes to the decision, I will not go into that profession because I am not welcome in that profession. I remember in that context a story a young lawyer told me. She's a young partner in a very ambitious law firm in Austria. And she told me, I was so surprised that on Monday, following a Friday, many things were changed. There were new ideas, there were new goals we have set, but I haven't heard about them, and I didn't discuss them. Later, she found out that she was the first female partner in that office. Later, she found out that Friday evening, her male partners met in the sauna, and everything was discussed there. This is also a so-called microaggression. You are not included. If you're not included, you're not welcome. It may sound so simple to you, but it's an overall problem that you do not embrace the people actually you need. And if we have heard today that Professor Kilian is telling us we have not even exploited young legal professionals from different migration backgrounds, then I must tell you, yes, why? Because you need to accept them. You need to include them into the discussion. You need to give them the possibility to start their career. Unfortunately, we have not had a newer report than the one of 2017 concerning gender disparity in legal professions in the EU. So I don't want to talk about figures 5 years ago, but what I would like to make a point to is that I'm also a strong opponent of reverse discrimination and reverse gender balance. Balance is balance. So I'm not so keen on seeing on a bench or wherever a majority of whoever, because as a legal and judiciary system, I think what we want to make feel society is that everyone's interest is duly represented. And I think this is also something we should all together discuss on an ongoing basis. What is the trust the society wants to see in our professions and in the judicial system and in a good working system? I was particularly impressed very recently about a contribution of our Ukraine lawyers in our last Future Committee. We were discussing why so little people are accessing our profession. And our Ukraine colleagues informed us, even so we have war, we have over 20,000 new lawyers registered in the bar in this year, in a year of war. This takes me back to something some of you might know that I'm also involved in valuing the history of lawyers in Austria. When do you think do the most young professionals come aboard on to a legal profession in history? When did that happen? It was always after the wars, and it was specifically after the Second World War, when we were trying to build up democracies. Then young legal professionals tended to be very interested in returning from whatever corner of the world back to Austria and back to Germany to build up democracy. This is a bit of probably a lack of understanding we have today. I think we have to make it very obvious what is the backbone of a democracy. And the backbone of a democracy is a functioning legal system. And I think if we try to implement this thought in our society, we will probably also have a much better picture in society and will be much more acknowledged, and I hope not being threatened by being shot or by being discriminated. Thank you very much.